And you got to make a decision. Are you going to like really rebuild or maintain what you've already got, or are you going to let it decline?
Welcome back to the Athlete's Edge podcast. Last week we covered training, health considerations and education for our 18 to 30-year-olds age bracket. Today we're moving into the 40s, 50s and 60s. For some, this means still finding time to train. For others, it's balancing work and running around for kids. So Tim, what's the main training focus for this age group?
Well, it's an interesting one and passionate about it because I'm nearly there.
Not quite.
Yeah, not quite. Got a year or two to go. But the 40s, 50s and 60s share one key truth. It's getting harder to prioritise training, but it becomes more important than ever. In your 40s, sort of that midlife, if we talked about our 20s, where probably it's no better time to be training and, you know, life's pretty fun and you've got lots of time and not as much commitment then, it's almost the exact opposite in your 40s where life is going to be full of work, family, stress. So often the thing that gets compromised is training and our health. If we then look at 50s off the back of that, so if that's probably happened in the 40s, we're really starting to notice that we don't feel as strong, things take longer to recover, we can't do as much, and we start to see physically we look different, so we're noticing probably negative changes in our body composition, and holding on to muscle mass and keeping the body fat off is a challenge. And then by 60s, we should be enjoying life, retirement age, but we're really starting to slow down. We lose independence if we're not looking after ourselves. So for me, over all 3 decades, the goal's the same. We want to build and maintain strength. We want to keep our mobility, and we want to feel high energy. We want to stay energetic. But how we train through those decades will be different. So 40s, it's really important around structure, getting the most out of ourselves. 50s a bit more maintenance and keeping things going, and then for me 60s is, like I said, all about that independence and freedom. Lifting, cardio, both are really important. A lot of the cancer research now is talking about these natural cytokines we have. They're great for our immune system and cancer fighting cells, protecting against diseases and stuff. So I think, it's funny because at 40 with my family history, the doctor then will start doing a yearly blood test. And it's like 40 is the kind of the age they trigger that to say every year come in and do this, because they're trying to do early detections for things like cancers and stuff. So for me, this is front of mind around, okay, what can I be doing to be proactive with this stuff? So we know that resistance training and cardio are both beneficial and probably different pathways. So it's important to have a balance between the two. So regardless of what you're doing and your preferred method, it's just really important to be consistent. It's more important than the intensity. So for me, at the moment, we're alternating lifting and cardio days with a rest day in there. So we're just trying to build really good habits.
So as we age, there are more health considerations that we need to make. So what are some of the key things people across these age groups need to think about?
So physically, a big one there is in and around how we move, maintaining our strength and mobility. It is very much use it or lose it. So I think everyone understands that. We just don't do it. We know better, but we don't follow through with it. Probably another key consideration there is we just don't recover as well, obviously, as we get older. Again, it's not an excuse not to do things, but we're going to notice changes in our sleep. Hormones will fluctuate. So then as a result, our ability to bounce back from stress, and training is a stress will take longer. So if we ignore these, if they don't go away, if anything, it's only going to make them worse. So being aware, and that risk is going to elevate with age. So if we don't start now, then obviously we're going to have more challenges as we go. So for me, 40s, managing your stress, maintaining your energy, and really focusing on preventing that muscle loss. So a big mistake is sort of avoiding the gym. I'm not as young as I was, or I've got these aches and pains, but that can be the solution to a lot of your problems if done right. So making sure that you're thinking about some strength training. Our 50s, obviously, the method's sort of still the same, but now we're sort of more worried about bone density. Our lean muscle mass is declining faster, and you start to the doctor will talk about blood pressures and cholesterol and heart health and stuff. So to get a strong heart and cardiovascular system, it's cardio type training. Like, you got to stress it like anything. Things adapt to stress. We just want to give it a little bit of stress repeated lots of times, so that we don't give it too much stress in one go and essentially create a cardiac event. So then in the 60s, obviously you can't do what you used to. You're not 20 anymore, but balance, coordination, fall prevention, all this stuff come off. Still strength. The biggest falls risk is quad weakness, because when we trip, if we can't then put our foot out and break, which is essentially like a forward lunge, then when we go and catch ourselves, we don't have the strength, we topple over. And then we hear about, like arm fractures, facial injuries, hip, which is obviously a nasty one, where people can decline really quickly, unfortunately, off the back of that, because you lose a lot of your mobility and your strength and function really quickly. So we know, like, resistance training, like we said, will improve things like testosterone, so your hormones in a positive way. It'll have benefits for your bone health, your metabolism. Your cardio will obviously enhance your blood flow, your mood, help your heart. Both of those, resistance training and cardio, are great for your brain, which we know as we get older, things like Alzheimer's and dementias and these things. We sort of mentioned the natural cytokines. So, from an immune response, the body's got it. It's capable. It's fighting, bad cells from the day we're almost born. It's trying to control things. From stress, from the environmental factors, it's really important to help give us some natural cover there. And then, like we touched on, so you can't obviously resistance train every day. You probably shouldn't do cardio every day. So if you're just alternating things, and I think what that means for you, where you're at, is it doesn't mean you have to go and run 10Ks and go and do a full-blown gym session. Like, just start small, just build it in, and like anything, you get better at it over time.
And so if they were to forget everything that you just kind of said, what's one sort of takeaway that they can have from that?
I guess if you summed all that up from a health perspective, training is medicine. And it's probably the best medicine out there, even though it's essentially free in some forms. It's your life insurance, it's your stress management, it's your prevention strategy, all in one. So if you're lifting one day, you move in and do a little bit of cardio the next, and stay consistent, then you're going to be in a pretty good space.
And so how should people in these age brackets think about their training from an education and mindset point of view? Obviously, what they can do is going to be limited compared to what they could do in their 20s. So how does their mindset have to shift, and what kind of things they have to think about?
Well, like I guess even our youth athletes, is mindset is probably the biggest differentiator for people that do this in this age group and do it well and stay healthy and active versus those that don't. So sort of, as you sort of touched on it, like, I think it's glass half full, glass empty to a degree. Like, you can either say, well, I can't do what I did, so I'm not going to do anything, or I can't do what I could do, but I want to do as much as I can. And what can you do? There's still lots you probably can do if you look at it. You're just not really aware of that. So until you try, you don't know. For me, your 40s is purpose, and I'm sort of, like I said, having a purpose now, getting close to it. And you got to make a decision. Are you going to really rebuild or maintain what you've already got, or are you going to let it decline? For me, they're the big. Just don't get complacent. It's, as we get older, it gets harder to get back. So if we can just stay consistent. In your 50s, sort of like what you touched on, is a bit more, for me, acceptance. So it will take longer to recover. You aren't 20 anymore. That doesn't mean you still can't enjoy training. You still can't compete, have fun doing it. So we've got a bit of an adult group. These guys are sort of 50s and 60s, and they're more competitive than our kids. they're almost bigger kids than our youth sessions. So they have fun doing it. They work pretty hard, but we just tailor to their ability. Like, box squats are higher boxes and the weights are lighter, and we compromise on the range and stuff a bit at times, but then we do some more stretching and do other things in there to combat that. And then if you do that well, for me, the 60s, I like the word appreciation. So you're using the training and being healthy to protect your freedom and quality of life, because I'm sure everyone that doesn't have the health, the one thing they wish they had was their health back. So don't take it for granted, protect it, and that off the back of that comes from being really consistent with your training.
So you mentioned the kind of adult group that we do have. What do you see in them for the ones that do it well?
So the ones that sort of seeing progress, they're they're not trying to out-train inconsistency. They're just consistent. So I think that's a mistake. Is people like, oh, I missed last week, so now I'll like go harder this week, which then only makes you sore, and you miss the next week. It's just being consistent. And if you're not, just understand that you just got to ease back in and just find a way so you can stay consistent moving forward. You can't outperform poor recovery in the sense that, poor sleep, poor eating, poor hydration, overconsumption, things like alcohol and bad foods and stuff will make it hard to back up. So again, protect your consistency, which might mean you have to have a look at some of your habits. And like we sort of touched on, you can't buy back your health later. So your habits and consistency are everything. Small little actions now repeated over time will win from not only now but from 12 through to 80.
And how should they kind of structure their sessions? How can they track their sessions? Walk us through that.
Yep. Well, I think having a structure is important. That's why we're big on having, times booked in. Look, I've even been there when I've had 24/7 gym memberships myself, and it's easy to go, I'll go tonight, and then you don't do it, then it's I'll go tomorrow. Like even my training now, like I'm not booked into our session, so it's easy to go, I'll do it. Whereas if I just had a time, a class, and then you're accountable to your class, like even if they're not necessarily your mates or people you know that well, people notice when you're not there. So you've got your own accountability, you've got your coach accountability, but then you've also got your sort of social accountability from the group you train with. So I think having a structure that then tends to lead to accountability because you've got a plan. Just keep it simple. Track your sessions, look after yourself in between, and just understand your limits. And if you sort of stay consistent and train within your limits and looking to just get a little bit better each time, it doesn't need to be fancy, it's repeatable and you'll get results.
And I guess to sort of wrap things up, what are some of the key takeaways that you want this kind of age group to have?
Yeah, I think 40s, 50s and 60s, the one key goal, like we want to be capable for the rest of our lives. We want to live a long life, but we want to live a good life, which means we want to be able to do things. There's no point living to 90, in my opinion, if you can't do anything. So it's not just like the what doesn't change. So we're lifting, we're moving continuously. We've got to recover and look after ourselves, and we're just repeating that. It's probably more just the how. So like I said, there's little modifications in and around training and the intensity and that sort of stuff as we scale. But that's the same at our 12 to 18s. Like we've got a wide variety of regressions, progressions, because they're all different. So I don't think we can use age as an excuse there. It's just, like we've got guys in our adult class that I said, like we've got joint replacements, one side, different joint on the other side, and you wouldn't necessarily know to look at them moving because they're trying to improve it and they're being consistent. I think it's probably the big difference to our athletic population is we're not necessarily chasing a performance goal. I think the kind of focus is just now more around longevity, confidence, freedom, that we can do what we want to do and do it well. And I love the quote, you don't stop moving because you age because you stop moving.